right, folks, welcome back from the commercial break. So excited to have this next guest on, particularly on a day with so much international news. He's one of the most sage voices in all of Congress, joining us right now from Georgia, where he's out campaigning, Congressman Austin Scott. Congressman, great to have you back on the show.
Hey, John, great to be on the show with you. Thanks for everything you do.
Well, you as well, sir. I want to start with something you tweeted out about. The OPEC decision last week was one of the most stunning rebukes an American president's ever suffered. But it's a reminder, as you said, that every adversary of the United States is taking advantage of a weak president and taking advantage of the fact that we've dried up our own energy resources. How big a deal is the OPEC in the larger story of our foreign policy?
Well, it's a big deal. And go back and think about what this president did, John, and that, he canceled the Keystone Pipeline and then he lifted the sanctions on the Russians building their pipeline. And this approach to governing where you put yourself at a disadvantage to your competitors has left us in a scenario where the OPEC cartel actually has more control over the economy inside the United States than we do. And so you should never allow someone who doesn't share your interests or someone or your values to have that much control over your energy, your economy, your food supply. And it's just a continued pattern from the Democratic Party to cede away the advantages that we have in our country.
Yep. Yeah, it really is remarkable. And it's interesting when you look at what OPEC said in response to it. Hey, you guys could solve your own problem. You got all that energy under your feet. And while they're not our friends at all, they are saying something true there. We really do have the solution in our own hands. He just can't execute it inside his own party. It's really remarkable. We have been waiting for a very long time for the Biden administration to give the congressionally required security strategy. They did today. They declare China and Russia are main adversaries, China particularly the only one that really can supplant the United States. It's kind of remarkable that they do that, but that's where Joe Biden and his brother and his son were trying to make some pretty significant business selling American gas to the Chinese. The conflict in messaging of declaring it a problem, but knowing the family tried to cash in on it.
Man, I don't know what to say about the Bidens and their business dealings. And if you go back and you look, he was a U.S. Senator for the majority of his adult life. I mean, U.S. Senators have made somewhere up to $175,000 a year. It's been at that same level for the last 15 years. Then he was VP, which is somewhere in the 250 range.
Yeah.
If you look at the net worth that, he and his family have, it just defies the norms that you can become that wealthy making $250,000 a year. So, I mean, those are things that need to be looked into. I mean, unfortunately, you've got a Justice Department under his control that, nitpicks anything and everything that President Trump did, but they're not going to look into the Bidens. No. They're just not going to. And so, hopefully, if we take control, I mean, we can have some hearings that expose some of the business dealings, and then it's up to the voters, John, to address it, because the DOJ is just not going to.
Yeah, that's where congressional oversight next year can be so beneficial. We can get to the truth.
Absolutely.
And I know you've been working hard on that. Amazing moment yesterday in the Danchenko trial, John Durham, an acknowledgement by the FBI that they couldn't corroborate the Steele dossier, so they offered Christopher Steele $1 million before the election to get him to corroborate it, and he didn't do it. He declined. He didn't do it. Then they went to the FISA court anyways and submitted it as verified, validated evidence. That's kept secret for 6 years, a remarkable secret broken in this trial yesterday. Mm-hmm. How concerned are you about the FBI?
I think people need to go to prison for that. We need an FBI that functions in an apolitical manner, and they have brought tremendous amounts of shame to that institution, and it's just a scenario under which people need to go to prison for what they did. Yeah. And so that, again, one of the things that we need to be investigating when we have the gavel and the ability to call for the investigations. I hope that will actually be one of the first ones, because there's more than a smoking gun there. Yeah. It's an actual fire.
Yeah, it is remarkable. And it takes 6 years. Devin Nunes had all these subpoenas out for exactly this type of information, and it was kept secret even from his committee. Remarkable.
Yeah, and look what the Dems did with our Intel committee, right? That's one of those committees that we very much need to be nonpartisan.
Yes.
Because they get to see a lot of things going on inside America and around the world. And look how the Democrats ran that committee and what they did with the whole, Russian hoax and everything else. I mean, there have to be consequences for that. And so I hope that when we take over, there'll be some members that are currently on the Intel committee that the Republican Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, will say, you can't serve here because of the discredit that you've been to the committee in the past.
Yeah. And while they spent so much time trying to prove collusion between Trump and Russia that didn't exist, the bad actions of Russia have only escalated on their watch. With Democrats in charge from 2018 in the Congress and 2021 with the White House, Russia's a far more aggressive actor than ever before, and you hardly really get a good intelligence analysis from the committee. How bad is the situation, and what is the end game? How does America bring an end to this Ukraine war?
Well, the end game with the Intel committee is that we just have to have people up there whose loyalties are to our country, to America, and the truth instead of their political party. And it's been run by a group, the Intel committee has, that is loyal to the Democratic political party. And so those people need to be purged, and we need to get some other people on the committee. That's one of my big concerns, John. I mean, our democracy can only survive if the public knows the truth. And when you politicize every single committee up there, Intel, the way Pelosi did, it's just not in the best interest of any American, Democrat or Republican. So I'm hopeful that we're able to get that back to some sense of normalcy by getting some of the people off the committee. I mean, if a Republican had slept with a Chinese spy or had a relationship with a Chinese spy, I mean, that person would have been purged from Congress, much less the committee.
That's right. Yeah, that's such a good point. And there's been no consequence whatsoever. He's still on the committee. It's jaw-dropping.
Oh, he got a promotion. He got put on the impeachment committee.
He did. It's just unreal. Rewarding bad behavior. Last question because I know you're real busy and you're on the campaign trail a lot. You're out there, you're seeing the race in Georgia, certainly for the governor, break Republican in a big way. It seems like crime and the economy have created a perfect storm where people who haven't looked at the Republican Party as an option for a while saying, you know what, I got to take a second look. What's the key to closing the deal in the last 3.5 weeks of the election?
Look, just letting people know that we as Republicans respect you. And we think that your opinion matters more than government control. And everything the Democrats, have done from Washington has been about controlling you. For example, I'm pro-vaccine, anti-mandate. I think that's where most Republicans are. And you know what? There are a lot of Democrats that feel that way too.
Absolutely.
John. And so, I mean, it's the Democratic Party right now that is very different from the Democratic Party that I grew up around in Georgia 20 years ago. In that this Democratic Party wants to control every aspect of your life. And if you disagree with them on anything, they will simply purge you. And you look back 10 years ago, there were several pro-life Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives. A lot of them were Catholic, devoted Christians. And let me tell you, the Democratic Party has purged each and every one of them from Congress now. And so I'm hopeful that the public is going to come back to some sense of normalcy, and let's govern from the center and in an area where it's actually good for the economy, good for people's rights, and you know what, good for our kids. I mean, we wanted our kids in school. Republicans wanted their kids in school, and it was Democrats that wanted to close the schools. So, that didn't work out. I mean, nothing the Democrats have done has worked in the best interest of this country in the last couple of years. And so give the Republicans a chance, and, we're going to get this economy back on track.
Yeah, that is the key. And those food prices you've been warning about, that's a big concern still, right? You're really worried about that, aren't you? 11,
well, and that's the one area that, because so much has moved overseas with fertilizer production and other things, that I'm very concerned that's probably the most difficult thing for us, is how we get a handle on the food issue.
Yeah, 2 or 3 year cycle maybe to really wrestle it down to normal again. That's what you've been warning about, and you've been right about it. Congressman, I know how busy you are. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day.